3 weeks after the Battle of Kelis Prime, the human fleet had transformed from rescuers into hunters. Admiral Bo-Ra-Shin established a command center on the planet's surface, coordinating the systematic hunt for every remaining harvest presence in the system. The temporary base was built in the ruins of what had once been the Vellani capital city. Human engineers worked alongside Vellani survivors to clear debris and establish medical facilities. The contrast between the two species was remarkable. Where humans moved with military efficiency, the Vellani floated gracefully, their movements flowing like water. Dr. Naricho had become the primary translator between the species. She spent her days with Elder Kef and other Vellani leaders, learning about their culture and sharing human knowledge. The peaceful aliens were fascinated by human society, though some aspects confused them greatly. They ask how humans can be so violent in war but so gentle with their wounded, Nari explained to Admiral Shin during one of their daily briefings. The concept of controlled aggression is foreign to them. Admiral Shin looked out the window of her temporary office at human medics, treating injured Vellani. The soldiers who had fought so fiercely just days before now worked patiently to help beings they had never met before the battle. Then we fight hard so we can love safely, she said. The hunt for remaining harvest forces had revealed disturbing information. Commander Jinho Baek's intelligence teams discovered that the creatures had been in this system for over a year. Not the 6 months the Vellani had reported. They were studying the Vellani before they attacked, Jinho reported, learning their habits, their technology, their weaknesses. Captain Yuki Han, now commanding a new vessel called the New Sol II, led deep reconnaissance missions to the outer regions of the system. His teams found evidence of harvest mining operations on several moons and asteroids. They weren't just taking the Vellani, Yuki reported during a video conference with the fleet commanders. They were stripping the entire system of resources. This was planned as a complete consumption of everything here. This discovery led to a chilling realization. The harvest weren't just predators hunting for food. They were a force that consumed entire solar systems, leaving nothing behind. Admiral Min Seo-yoon commanded the deep space patrols that swept the system's edges. Her ships found hidden harvest stations and supply depots that had been camouflaged to look like asteroids. Every time we think we found everything, we discover more, she reported. It's like they were planning to stay here for decades. The systematic destruction of these hidden facilities became a training exercise for the human fleet. Admiral Hyun-Woo Jang developed new tactics specifically for fighting biomechanical enemies. Their ships regenerate damage if you don't destroy the organic components completely, he explained to the assembled ship captains. You have to target their nerve centers and biological systems, not just their weapons and engines. The human Marines, led by Commander Sang-Ho Lee, became experts at boarding and clearing harvest vessels. Each capture mission revealed more about the enemy's true nature. The ships aren't just alive, Sang-Ho reported after clearing another harvest facility. They're intelligent. The ship itself was trying to prevent us from reaching the command center. Dr. Subin Lim studied the captured harvest technology with teams of human scientists and Vellani researchers. The cooperation between the two species was producing remarkable results. The Vellani have knowledge of organic crystal growth that perfectly complements our understanding of the harvest biotechnology, she explained. Together, we're learning how these creatures convert living beings into ship components. The most disturbing discovery came when they found harvest breeding facilities on one of the system's outer moons. The creatures had been creating new bioships using converted Vellani genetic material. General Wu Jin Kang personally led the assault on these facilities. What his forces found there made even veteran soldiers require psychological support afterward. They had prototype ships made entirely from Vellani neural tissue, he reported grimly. The harvest weren't just killing them. They were trying to create ships that thought like Vellani. This revelation led to the most important discovery of the entire campaign. The harvest fleet wasn't just one group of predators. It was part of a vast network that shared information across the galaxy. Every ship we've captured has biological communication organs, explained Chief Engineer Dong Hyun An. They've been sending data about us to other harvest fleets. Admiral Shin realized the implications immediately. They know about us now. They know humans exist and that we can fight them. The human commanders faced a strategic decision. They could return to human space and prepare defenses, or they could continue hunting the harvest before they could warn others. Elder Kef provided the answer during a meeting with the human leadership. Through Dr. Nari's translation, he shared information that changed everything. He says the harvest told the Villani about other worlds they had consumed, Nari reported. Dozens of species across this sector of the galaxy. Some might still have survivors. The decision was unanimous. The human fleet would not return home. They would continue outward, hunting the harvest and searching for other victims. Admiral Shin addressed the entire fleet from her command center on Kalos Prime. "We came here to save one species," she said. "We've discovered that dozens of species need our help. This fleet will not return to Earth until every harvest force in this sector has been destroyed." The response from the fleet was immediate approval. Ship after ship reported ready for extended operations. Volunteer crews arrived daily from human space, bringing supplies and reinforcements. Captain Yuki Han received new orders to lead exploration missions into neighboring systems. His modified research vessel had become the fleet's primary reconnaissance platform. "Find them before they find us," Admiral Shin ordered, "and find any survivors who might still be hiding." The Villani proved to be valuable allies in this new mission. Their peaceful nature and advanced crystal technology provided capabilities the human fleet lacked. Elder Kef volunteered to accompany the human expeditions as a cultural ambassador. "The Villani want to help save other species," Dr. Nari explained. "They say it's their duty to use their survival to protect others." Lieutenant Commander Yoonji Kim coordinated the integration of Villani technology into human ships. The crystal communication systems the peaceful aliens had developed could transmit messages across vast distances without the harvest detecting them. As the combined human Villani fleet prepared to leave Kalos Prime, Admiral Shin received a message from Earth. The government wanted to recall the fleet for proper authorization and diplomatic procedures. Admiral Shin's response was simple and direct. "We have authorization from our conscience and diplomacy from our actions. The fleet continues its mission. The largest military force in human history, now aided by the survivors of the first species they had saved, departed Kalos Prime for unknown space. Behind them, they left a functioning world where Villani civilization was beginning to rebuild. Ahead of them waited an unknown number of harvest fleets and possibly millions of enslaved beings from dozens of species." Captain Yuki Han stood on the bridge of his new ship and watched the fleet spread across space. "Signal all vessels," he ordered. "Set course for the unknown. We have people to find and predators to hunt." The new Sol 2 led the way into the darkness, followed by over 1,300 human and Villani vessels. The hunt for the harvest had become humanity's new purpose. Elder Kef's final transmission to his people on Kalos Prime summed up what had happened. "The Sky Friends came to save us. Now we go with them to save others. The darkness is no longer empty. It is filled with protectors." The second phase of humanity's galactic war was about to begin. The first shots of the Battle of Kalos Prime came from the human fleet. Admiral Bo-Ra Shin had ordered a coordinated strike that would show the harvest exactly what they were facing. 100 heavy cruisers fired simultaneously. Kinetic projectiles traveling at incredible speed slammed into 3 harvest escort vessels. The alien ships, which had seemed so powerful and terrifying, simply came apart. Metal and organic matter scattered across space like broken toys. "Direct hits," reported Commander Jinho Bayek from the Incheon. 3 enemy vessels destroyed. The speed and power of the human attack shocked everyone, including the humans themselves. Captain Yuki Han watched from the new Sol as debris from the harvest ships drifted past his view screen. "In 30 seconds, we just killed 3 ships that have been terrorizing an entire planet," said Lieutenant Commander Yoonji Kim, her voice filled with amazement. The harvest response was immediate but confused. Their remaining ships began firing back, but their weapons seemed designed for hunting helpless prey, not fighting an organized military force. Green plasma beams struck human ships but found their targets protected by advanced shields and armor. Admiral Min Seo-yoon led the second wave of attacks. Her battle group consisted of fast attack vessels from the Mars colonies. These ships had been designed to fight pirates and raiders in the outer systems. They moved through space like a pack of wolves, striking from multiple directions. "The enemy doesn't know how to respond to coordinated attacks," Admiral Yoon reported. "They're fighting like individuals, not as a fleet." Admiral Hyun-woo Jang commanded the third wave. His ships were older but crewed by veterans who had fought in the border wars. They approached the largest harvest vessels directly, trading shots with the massive biomechanical ships. "These things are tough," Jang reported as green plasma splashed across his ship's shields. "But they're not invincible. Concentrated fire on their organic section seems to hurt them." Captain Yuki Han received his orders to break through the enemy perimeter. The new Soul, now equipped with experimental weapons and shields, accelerated toward the planet. Fighter squadrons from Admiral Shin's carrier group escorted him. The fighters were piloted by men and women from across human space. They flew their small craft through the harvest formation like birds diving through a forest. Their movements were impossible to predict or counter. "How are they flying like that?" asked Chief Engineer Dong Hyun-an as he watched a fighter squadron weave between harvest ships. "They're from high-gravity worlds," explained Lieutenant Commander Yoon-ji. "They can handle acceleration and turns that would kill most beings. The harvest pilots can't match their maneuvers." The new Soul punched through the enemy line and dove toward Kilos Prime. As they approached the planet, Yuki could see the full extent of the destruction. Entire continents were covered in smoke and ash. The beautiful crystal cities the Vellani had built were now ruins. Dr. Nari worked frantically to establish contact with Vellani survivors. "I'm getting responses from all over the planet," she reported. "They're coming out of hiding. They can see our ships in the sky. Tell them to stay hidden until we can secure landing zones," Yuki ordered. Above them, the main battle continued. The human fleet had spread across the system, hunting down every harvest vessel they could find. What surprised the human commanders was how quickly the enemy was being defeated. General Wu Jin Kang analyzed the battle from his command ship. "Admiral Shin, I think we've been looking at this wrong. The harvest aren't soldiers. They're hunters. They're used to prey that can't fight back." Admiral Shin understood immediately. They've never faced resistance like this. They don't know how to fight a real war. The truth became clear as the battle progressed. The harvest were predators, but they were specialized predators. They had evolved or been designed to hunt peaceful species like the Vellani. When faced with an apex predator species like humans, they had no effective response. Commander Sang-Ho Lee led the first Marine boarding parties onto captured harvest vessels. What they found inside made even hardened soldiers feel sick. "Admiral, you need to see this," Sang-Ho reported from inside a harvest transport ship. The interior of the ship was organic, with walls that pulsed like living tissue. Corridors were lined with pods containing Vellani prisoners in various stages of a horrible transformation process. "They're not just capturing them," Sang-Ho continued, his voice shaking. "They're converting them, turning them into components for their ships." Dr. Subin Lim studied the transmitted images from orbit. Her analysis was horrifying. The harvest ships are partially alive because they're made from the species they've conquered. They're not just killing civilizations, they're absorbing them. This revelation changed everything. The human fleet commanders realized they weren't just fighting slavers or conquerors. They were fighting a force that completely consumed other species. Admiral Shin's response was immediate and absolute. "Signal all commands. New standing orders. No harvest vessel leaves this system intact. This is no longer a rescue mission. This is an extermination." The human attack intensified. Ships that had been holding back now committed fully to the battle. The asteroid mining vessels that had joined the fleet revealed hidden weapon systems. Even the medical ships carried armed escorts. Captain Yuki had landed the new Soul in a protected valley on Kalos Prime. The first humans to set foot on an alien world were met by thousands of Vellani, survivors emerging from underground shelters. The Vellani were beautiful in their fragility. They stood about as tall as humans but were much thinner, with pale skin that seemed to shimmer in the light. Their large eyes showed both fear and hope as they approached the human landing party. Elder Kef was among the first to meet them. Through Dr. Nari's translation, he spoke words that would be remembered forever. "We called into the darkness for help," he said. The darkness answered with angels of war. Yuki removed his helmet so the Vellani could see his face. "We're not angels," he said gently. "We're just humans. And humans protect their friends." The evacuation of Vellani survivors began immediately. Human ships landed across the planet, loading refugees and medical supplies. The Vellani were amazed by human efficiency and organization. Within hours, millions of survivors were being transported to safety. Above the planet, the space battle was reaching its climax. The largest harvest vessel, A massive creature ship over 20 kilometers long was attempting to escape the system with thousands of Villani prisoners still in its organic holds. "That's their command ship," observed Commander Jinho Bayek. "If it escapes, it might warn other harvest fleets about us." Admiral Shin studied the tactical display. The command ship was too large and too well defended for a normal attack. It would require something drastic. Captain Yuki Han's voice crackled through the communication system from the planet's surface. "Admiral, I volunteer for a ramming attack. The new Sol can punch through their hull and disable their command center." "Negative, Captain. You have civilians to evacuate." "The evacuation ships can handle that, Admiral. This needs to be done." Lieutenant Commander Yoonji Kim worked frantically at her station. "Captain, wait. I think I can beam you out at the last second. The ship can complete the mission without you." The plan was desperate, but it worked. The new Sol, its hull reinforced with experimental armor, accelerated directly toward the Harvest command ship. At the last moment, Yoonji activated the emergency transport system, beaming Captain Han to safety. The research vessel slammed into the creature ship's neural center like a spear through a heart. The impact sent shockwaves through the organic network that connected all the Harvest vessels. One by one, the remaining Harvest ships began to shut down. Their organic components died, leaving only dead metal drifting in space. The Battle of Kelos Prime was over. Humanity had won its first interstellar war in less than 6 hours. As the human fleet regrouped around the planet, Admiral Shin received reports from across the system. Every Harvest vessel had been destroyed or disabled. Over 30 million Villani survivors had been rescued. The genocide had been stopped. "Signal Earth," Admiral Shin ordered. "Tell them the mission is complete. Tell them the Villani are safe." But even as they celebrated their victory, the human commanders knew this was just the beginning. The Harvest had consumed dozens of species across this sector of the galaxy. There were other victims out there, other peaceful civilizations that needed protection. The Deathworlders had announced themselves to the galaxy, and they were just getting started. The new Sol arrived at the edge of the Kalos system 3 days before the main fleet. Captain Yuki Han ordered his ship to stay hidden behind a large asteroid while they observed what was happening around Kalos Prime. What they saw made the entire crew feel sick. The planet looked like it was dying. Dark smoke covered most of the surface, and huge fires burned across the continents. In orbit around the planet, massive alien ships moved slowly like giant metal vultures. "Dear God," whispered Lieutenant Commander Yoonji Kim as she watched the sensor readings. "Those ships are enormous." Chief Engineer Dong Hyun-an worked frantically at his station, trying to understand what they were seeing. "Captain, the largest ship is over 15 kilometers long. Our entire vessel could fit inside one of their cargo bays." The Harvest ships were unlike anything in human military databases. They looked organic, like they had grown instead of being built. Strange curves and bulges covered their hulls, and some sections seemed to pulse like a heartbeat. "Are those ships alive?" asked Dr. Naricho. "I think parts of them are," Dong Hyun replied, his voice shaking. "I'm reading biological signatures mixed with metal and crystal. It's like they're part machine, part creature." Yuki ordered Taimin to record everything they observed. The main fleet needed to know what they would face when they arrived. For 3 days, the crew of the new Sol watched the horror below. Harvest ships landed on the planet's surface and deployed smaller vessels that moved like hunting animals. These craft searched through the ruins of Villani cities looking for survivors. When they found Villani hiding places, the results were terrible to watch. Beams of green energy dissolved the protective barriers the peaceful aliens had built. Then mechanical arms reached down and grabbed the Villani, loading them into cargo holds like livestock. "They're not killing them immediately," observed Yoonji during one particularly awful observation session. "They're taking them alive." "For what purpose?" Yuki asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted to know the answer. Dr. Nari picked up transmissions from the planet's surface. The Villani were still broadcasting, but their messages had become desperate prayers. They spoke of family members being taken, of children crying for parents who would never return. "Captain," Nari said with tears in her eyes, "they're asking if we're still coming. They want to know if the Sky Friends remember them." Yuki felt anger burning in his chest. These peaceful beings had reached out for help, and he had promised it would come. Now he had to watch them suffer while waiting for the human fleet to arrive. On the 4th day, long-range sensors detected the approaching human armada. Over 1,200 ships dropped out of hyperspace at the system's edge. The sight of so many vessels filled the crew of the New Soul with hope and pride. Admiral Bora Shin's flagship, the Incheon, moved to the front of the formation. Yuki received an immediate communication from the Admiral. "Captain Han, this is Admiral Shin. Report on the situation." Yuki transmitted all their recorded data. The silence that followed lasted for several minutes. When Admiral Shin spoke again, her voice was cold with controlled fury. "Captain, how many Vellani survivors are left?" "Our best estimate is 30 to 40 million, Admiral. But that number drops every day." "And the enemy force?" Chief Engineer Dong Hyun answered from his station. 47 large vessels, approximately 300 smaller craft. "Admiral, their weapons appear to fire some kind of corrosive plasma. We've watched it dissolve both metal and organic matter." Admiral Min Seo-yoon's voice joined the conversation from her battle group. "Admiral Shin, the enemy ships are beginning to move toward the system's edge. I think they know we're here." Commander Jin Ho Bayek's intelligence report crackled through the communication system. "Long-range sensors show the Harvest loading massive numbers of Vellani onto their transport ships. They're preparing to leave with their prisoners." Admiral Hyunwoo Jang's rough voice cut through the chatter. "Bora, we need to move now. If those transports escape, we'll never find those people again." Yuki listened to the fleet commanders debate their options. Standard first contact procedures required attempts at communication, careful observation, and gradual engagement. But there was nothing standard about this situation. Admiral Shin made the decision that would be remembered in history books. "All ships, this is Admiral Shin. We are not following first contact protocols. This is a rescue mission under emergency conditions. Those transports will not leave this system with Vellani prisoners." General Wu Jinkang's voice was filled with approval. "It's about time we stopped following rules while innocent people die." The human fleet began moving into attack formation. Yuki had never seen anything so magnificent and terrifying. 1,200 warships spreading across space like an advancing storm cloud. "Captain Han," Admiral Shin continued, "your ship knows this system better than any other. I want you to lead the first wave. Your mission is to break through their perimeter and make contact with Vellani survivors on the planet." Yuki felt his heart racing. "Admiral, the New Soul is a research vessel. We're not equipped for combat." "Your ship is fast and small," Admiral Shin replied. "We're attaching experimental shields and weapons to your vessel. You'll punch through their lines while we keep them busy." Lieutenant Commander Yoonji began coordinating with the fleet's technical teams. Within 2 hours, the New Soul had been transformed. New armor plating covered the hull, and weapon pods hung from temporary mounts. Dr. Nari established communication with the Vellani survivors on the planet. When she told them that 1,200 ships had come to help them, the response was overwhelming. Thousands of Vellani voices filled the communication channels, crying with joy and disbelief. One voice stood out from the others. It belonged to an elder named Kef, one of the few Vellani leaders still alive. "Sky friends," Kef said in broken mathematical language. "We thought we would die alone. We did not know the universe contained such kindness." Admiral Shin's voice softened as she listened to the translation. "Tell Elder Kef that humans do not abandon their friends. Tell him we're coming to bring him home." The Harvest fleet had formed a defensive line around Kilos Prime. Their ships moved with predatory grace, like sharks sensing blood in the water. They had no idea what they were about to face. "All ships, battle stations," Admiral Shin commanded. "Today we teach the galaxy that peaceful species are under human protection. Today we show the Harvest what happens when predators meet apex predators." Captain Yuki Han looked at his crew. They were scientists and explorers, not soldiers. But they had volunteered for this mission because it was the right thing to do. "All hands, prepare for combat," Yuki announced over the ship's communication system. "We're going to get our people." The New Soul accelerated toward the enemy fleet, followed by the largest armada in human history. Below them, 40 million Vellani survivors waited for salvation. The Battle of Kilos Prime was about to begin. Fleet Admiral Bora Shin was drinking coffee in her office on Luna Station when the emergency message arrived. She had been reviewing routine patrol reports from the outer colonies. The war room was quiet, filled only with the soft hum of computers and the distant sound of ships launching from the docking bays. The communication officer, Lieutenant Young-Soo Kim, burst through the door without knocking. His face was pale and he held a data pad in his shaking hands. "Admiral, you need to see this immediately." Bora took the pad and read the decoded message from the new soul. Her coffee grew cold as she read about the Vallani and the harvest. When she finished, she sat in silence for a long moment. "How many people have seen this?" she asked. "The message went out on all emergency channels, ma'am. Every major fleet base in human space received it." Bora stood up and walked to her window. Outside, she could see Earth hanging in space like a blue marble. Somewhere out there, peaceful beings were being hunted to extinction. "Get me General Wu Jin Kang on Mars," she ordered, "and Admiral Min Seo Yoon at the Jupiter shipyards. Emergency conference in 10 minutes. The next few hours changed everything." General Kang was the first to respond. His deep voice filled Bora's office through the speaker system. "I've already started pulling ships from the border patrol," he said. "If we're going to help these Vallani, we need to move fast." Admiral Yoon's voice crackled through from Jupiter. "I can give you 3 battle groups within 6 hours. The new dreadnoughts just finished their trials." Bora was surprised by how quickly her commanders were acting. Usually, military decisions took days of planning and approval from Earth's government. But something about the Vallani message had triggered an immediate response. "Admiral Hyunwoo Jang is already moving," reported Captain Soo-Jin Park from the communications center. "He abandoned his patrol route and is heading toward the coordinates." Bora knew Admiral Jang well. He was tough and sometimes difficult to work with, but he had a strong sense of right and wrong. If he was moving without orders, the situation must have affected him deeply. Dr. Soo-Bin Lim arrived at the station to brief the assembled commanders. She was Earth's leading expert on alien psychology. Though she had never actually met an alien before, her analysis of the Vallani message was troubling. Based on their communication patterns and cultural descriptions, the Vallani are completely peaceful, she explained to the gathered officers. They have no military, no weapons, no concept of warfare. They're being slaughtered by predators they cannot understand or fight. Colonel Haijin Yang, who commanded the Marine forces, asked the question everyone was thinking. How did they survive this long? They're hiding underground in deep caves, Dr. Lim answered. But the harvest is finding them anyway. The Vallani estimate they have maybe 2 weeks before the last survivors are captured. Bora felt a familiar anger building in her chest. As a child, she had learned about the genocides in human history. The Holocaust, the Armenian massacre, Rwanda, Cambodia. Millions of innocent people had died while the world stood by and did nothing. Not this time, she said quietly. Ma'am, Captain Park asked. Not this time, Bora repeated louder. Human beings will not stand by and watch another genocide happen. Not when we have the power to stop it. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Within 12 hours, ship commanders across human space began abandoning their posts to join the rescue mission. Captain Dong-Soo Lee left his cargo run to Titan. Commander Ji-Hai Choi pulled her destroyer squadron away from pirate hunting. Even civilian ships began volunteering to carry supplies and medical equipment. The government on Earth tried to maintain control, but their official messages arrived too late. The military commanders had already made their decision. This wasn't about politics or territory. This was about protecting innocent life. Admiral Min Seo Yoon sent a message that summed up the military's position. We swore an oath to protect those who cannot protect themselves. The Vallani cannot fight the harvest. We can. By the end of the second day, over 800 warships were heading toward the Kalos system. By the third day, the number had grown to over 1,200. It was the largest fleet ever assembled by humanity. Bora transferred her command to the battleship Incheon and set course for Kalos Prime. As they traveled through hyperspace, she received reports from across the fleet. The diversity of ships was remarkable. There were massive dreadnoughts from the core worlds, fast attack cruisers from the frontier colonies, and experimental vessels from the research divisions. Commander Jinho Bayek, her intelligence officer, provided updates on the fleet composition. We have representatives from every major human settlement, he reported. Mars Defense Force, Titan Security Fleet, the Outer Rim Rangers, even the miners from the asteroid belt sent armed cargo haulers. What about the politicians? Bora asked. They're still arguing about authorization and proper procedures, Jinho said with a slight smile. I estimate they'll reach a decision about 3 days after we arrive at Kalos. Bora laughed despite the serious situation. Human bureaucracy was slow, but human conscience was fast. Dr. Soo-Bin Lim spent the journey studying everything they knew about the harvest. The information was limited but disturbing. The Vallani described ships that seemed to be alive. weapons that dissolved both metal and flesh, and hunters that showed no mercy. They're predators, Dr. Lim explained during a strategy meeting. Pure predators. They see the Villani as prey animals, nothing more. General Kang leaned forward in his chair. What do predators do when they meet another predator? They either fight or run, Dr. Lim answered. Good, the general said grimly. Because humans are the apex predators of Earth, and Earth is the most dangerous planet we know. Bora looked around the meeting room at her officers. They came from different worlds and different backgrounds, but they all shared the same determined expression. Humanity had spent thousands of years learning to fight. They had developed weapons and tactics through countless wars. They had survived ice ages, plagues, asteroid impacts, and their own worst instincts. Now they would use all that hard-earned knowledge to protect a species that had never known violence. Signal all ships, Bora ordered. Battle speed to Kalos Prime. The Villani called for help. We're going to answer. The massive human fleet accelerated through space, carrying the hopes of two species. Behind them, emergency shipyards worked around the clock to build more vessels. Across human space, volunteers lined up to join the mission. The Villani had reached out into the darkness, hoping someone would hear their desperate call. They were about to learn that the universe contained creatures far more dangerous than the Harvest. They were about to meet the Deathworlders. Captain Yuki Han walked through the narrow halls of his ship, the New Soul. The research vessel moved slowly through deep space, far from Earth and the other human worlds. His crew of 35 had been mapping new star systems for 6 months. It was quiet work, but important work. Yuki stopped at the communication station where Taemin Park sat with headphones on. The young officer looked tired. Space was mostly empty, and listening for signals was boring most of the time. Anything interesting today? Yuki asked. Taemin shook his head. Just the usual background noise from distant stars. Nothing artificial? He paused and frowned at his screen. Wait, there's something here. The signal was weak and broken. It came in short bursts like someone tapping on metal. Taemin adjusted his equipment and played it through the speakers. The sound filled the small room with strange patterns. Is that communication? Yuki asked. I think so, Taemin said. But it's not from any human ship. The pattern is wrong. Too simple. Yuki called Dr. Naricho to the communication room. She was their expert on languages and codes. When she arrived, her dark hair was tied back and she looked curious. Play it again, she said. The three of them listened to the strange signal. It repeated the same pattern over and over. Nari counted the beats and wrote numbers on a paper pad. This is mathematics, she said finally. Someone is sending us prime numbers. 3, 5, 7, 11. Then they send star coordinates. Coordinates to where? Yuki asked. Nari worked for several minutes with her computer. A star system about 40 light years from here. But Captain, there's something else in this signal. Something that sounds like... She stopped and looked worried. What is it? Fear. Desperation. Whoever sent this is in serious trouble. Yuki ordered the ship to change course toward the coordinates. While they traveled, Nari worked day and night to understand more of the signal. She found that it repeated every 6 hours, getting slightly weaker each time. 3 days later, Nari called Yuki to her laboratory. Her eyes were red from lack of sleep, but she looked excited and frightened at the same time. I've decoded most of the message, she said. The beings who sent this call themselves the Villani. They live on a planet they call Kalos Prime. What do they want? Yuki asked. Nari's voice shook as she read from her notes. They're being killed, Captain. Something they call the Harvest came to their world 6 months ago. The Villani say their population was over 2 billion. Now fewer than 50 million are still alive. Yuki felt cold. 50 million out of 2 billion? The Harvest takes them away. The Villani don't know where or why. They've tried to fight back, but they say they don't understand violence. They've never had war on their world. Never had war? Yuki found this hard to believe. They're herbivores, Captain. Plant eaters. Their message shows they're completely peaceful. They eat plants, build with crystals, and share everything. The concept of killing for resources is impossible for them to understand. Yuki read the translated message himself. The Villani described creatures that came from the sky in huge ships. These beings hunted Villani like animals, taking millions at a time. The survivors hid underground, but the Harvest found them anyway. They say they sent this message to anyone who might hear it. Nari continued. They don't even know if other intelligent life exists. This is their first attempt to contact someone beyond their world. Commander Sang-Ho Lee and Lieutenant Commander Yoon-ji Kim joined them in the laboratory. Both officers looked grim as they heard the translation. "What are your orders, Captain?" Sang-Ho asked. Yuki thought carefully. Earth's fleet had rules about first contact with alien species. They were supposed to observe and report back to headquarters, but this wasn't normal first contact. This was genocide. "How long until we reach their system?" Yuki asked. 18 hours, Yoon-ji reported. "Nari, can you send a response to their signal?" "I think so. But Captain, what should I tell them?" Yuki looked at his officers. He saw the same determination in their faces that he felt in his heart. Humans knew about genocide. They had suffered through it and caused it in their own history. The idea of peaceful beings being hunted like animals made him angry. "Tell them help is coming," he said. Nari worked to create a response message using the same mathematical patterns. She sent coordinates showing where the new soul would arrive and when. She also sent a simple message. "We are friends. We come to help." But Yuki knew his small research ship couldn't fight an enemy that had killed 2 billion beings. He needed help from Earth's fleet. "Taemin, open an emergency channel to Fleet Command," Yuki ordered. "Send them everything we've learned about the Villani and the harvest." "Sir, that will take days to reach Earth," Taemin said. "Then start broadcasting on all emergency frequencies. Any human ship in range needs to know about this." "Captain," Sang-Ho said quietly, "we might be starting a war with an unknown alien species." Yuki nodded. "Maybe, but if we don't act, an entire peaceful species will die. I can live with starting a war to save innocent lives." The new soul continued toward the Kilo system. Behind them, their emergency broadcasts spread through space, reaching human ships and stations across dozens of star systems. The message was simple but powerful. Peaceful aliens were being slaughtered and needed help immediately. Yuki didn't know it yet, but his decision to broadcast the Villani distress call would change everything. Human commanders across the galaxy were about to hear that message. When they did, they would remember Earth's own dark history. They would think of the innocent people who had died in human wars and genocides, and they would decide that it would never happen again, not while humans had the power to stop it. As the new soul approached the Kilo system, Yuki stood on his bridge and watched the stars. Somewhere ahead, peaceful beings were dying. Behind him, the most powerful military force in human history was beginning to move. The Villani had called for help. The humans were coming.